So there is a church in New Jersey that wants to build a homeless shelter on its property. And they are dealing with all kinds of chaos because of it. I don't want to give everything away, but let me start with this. We're talking about Christ Episcopal Church in Toms River, New Jersey. So this church, it's an Episcopal church. Like I said, it has about 150 people that come every week. And the location of the church, they actually have a lot of space. And on their land, they have a couple of buildings. One's the church, one's another office building of sorts. And they kind of let nonprofit groups use that office building. And one of the nonprofits that works out of their church then is called the Affordable Housing Alliance. And you could guess what they do, right? They're trying to make sure there's affordable housing for people who can't afford it. And last year, the church said, we care about this issue. We want to make sure homelessness is addressed. And what can we do as a church to address that problem? So they wanted to build a 17-bed shelter on their property. Like, they would do everything by the book. The problem is, because of where their church is located, it's a residential area. You can't just build a building on there, much less a shelter, without getting approval from the town's zoning board. And you got to get an exemption to their rules that say you can't build certain things on there. And this is what the church lawyer went to the zoning board and tried to make an argument for why you ought to let the church build this shelter. This is a guy, what's his name? His name is York. What's his name? Harvey York. This is what the lawyer said. It's a good use for the property. We have funding and we would renovate the existing building to accommodate it. He said Ocean County has no permanent shelter for the homeless, right? People who are advocates for those experiencing homelessness argue a shelter could help people get back on their feet, connect them to mental health counseling and job training and assistance in getting insurance and identification. The answer really is the church is the right place. There's already counseling there. We are not putting 200 people here. It's 17 beds. Like, yeah, okay, that's a fair point to me. Not only is this an extension of the work the church already does, they are providing a space that the government, the local government, is not already providing. Like, there is a different shelter in the region, but it only offers overnight lodging when it's freezing cold. And that one is on the verge of shutting down. And there's another shelter, but it's only open to families, so individuals cannot take advantage of it. And on top of that, in Toms River, local housing costs have skyrocketed, and alternatives like cheap motels and stuff like that, those are disappearing. So, like, you can make an argument that this shelter really is needed. So that's important. So they need the city's permission to move forward with it by getting an exemption to the rules. So what the church needs right now is something called a use variance permit. Like, we're changing up how we're using this land, so can you give us permission to do it that way? And one of the criteria for getting a use variance permit is you got to prove you are offering something inherently beneficial to the community. Well, I would think a homeless shelter fits that criteria, right? Seems to make sense. One lady, however, who went to a zoning board meeting said, this is not beneficial for anybody. Check this out. I don't care if you're going to call me a NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't care if you're going to call me a racist. I am not. I am a taxpayer. And I just don't think it's fair, because she lives near the church. Her voice cracked, and she seemed near tears as she recounted her fears that the 17-bed shelter would act as a magnet to draw even more unhoused people to the sites. Her remarks drew loud applause from the crowd. So this lady is worried that if you build a shelter, other people who are homeless might come there? Okay. But she also complained separately that she had seen people without homes who are sleeping on benches in her area. And she said she saw some of them smoking. And she worried that if you allow these people in the shelter, they might burn that building down, and that fire is going to set her house on fire. And she said, and I quote, "My house is wood." But again, if you don't like homeless people sleeping on the bench near your community, you know what would stop that from happening? A shelter. So then there's another guy who opposes the shelter. His name is Edward Bezdecki. He's one of the lawyers opposing the shelter, and he says there's nothing inherently beneficial about this shelter, because everyone in the community is going to suffer because our property values will go down, and also our lives will be worse if you give shelter to these unhoused people. This is what he said. Where is it a benefit? They, meaning the homeowners, they are not gaining anything. These homes, forget about the value. I'm talking about quality of life. Presently, when you look at the people that are coming to this location, they are coming by in their 20s. Oh no, not 20-year-olds. They're wearing black with hoods. Oh no. And masks and backpacks. They're coming in droves. Right, because you really got to worry about those 20-year-olds with backpacks. Listen, if you gave people a shelter, they would not have to carry all their shit with them all the time, so they probably wouldn't need the backpacks. I don't know. Again, having a shelter keeps them off the benches too. If you don't like the sight of homeless people in your community, a shelter is a way to solve the problem, not exacerbate the problem. And the church is offering to host the shelter and build it, renovate it, and manage it. And by the way, even if that lawyer was not talking about property values, other people were talking about them. And one guy argued that if you allow the church to welcome, if you give the church an exemption, a zoning exemption to build this shelter, what's the slippery slope after that? Like, what are other churches going to do? Are other churches going to want to help people then too? And we can't have that, can we? Look at this. Toms River resident Paul Williams argued that allowing a variance at the Christ Episcopal Church site could allow other religious institutions to seek their own variances. I am adamantly opposed to this application because I see bigger than just this one issue. I see bigger than this application. I am concerned that this is going to open a floodgate that can't be closed. And by floodgate in this case, he means, oh no, what if other churches want to help other people who are down on their luck? That would be the worst thing ever. We can't have that, can we? Like, nothing worse than a community helping too many people who are really having it rough. Am I right? So anyway, where are we at with this? Right now, a use variance approval, the vote on whether they're going to approve this variance, is scheduled 2 weeks from now on May 22nd, as I'm making this video. But that's only part one of this story. Because again, they are debating that, and a lot of people in the community do not want the church to build the shelter. They do not want the city to give them this use variance permit. But as all this is being debated, it turns out the mayor of Toms River really hates homeless people. How do I know that? Well, he has accused Ocean County of, quote, dumping homeless people in his town to exaggerate the housing crisis. Here's another thing. Look at this headline here. Let me just show you the headline. Rock Legends restaurant feeds those in need. New Jersey mayor wants it closed down. It turns out John Bon Jovi has a nonprofit called JBJ Soul Kitchen, where they provide meals to the hungry for free. And the county gave that nonprofit the ability to open up inside of a branch of a local library. So they are feeding the hungry outside of a local library. And the mayor of Toms River said it's attracting too many homeless people and leading to disorderly behavior. So that is what the mayor is doing right now. Now, it turns out, it seems to me, that the mayor of Toms River has sway over the city council, because it seems like the city council is very worried this shelter is going to get the approval it needs, and they do not want that to happen. So guess what they just did last week? Before a meeting of the city council, they included in their agenda this item. It was the last thing on the agenda. They want to pass an ordinance, and check this out. Ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Toms River, Ocean County, New Jersey. This sounds like a bunch of nonsense, but what they are saying is we are going to use eminent domain to just take over parts of the city. And which parts do we want to take over? They want to take over a handful of marinas that they say are not being used properly. And look at the part that's highlighted. We want to acquire the property known as 415 Washington Street, block 687, lot 16. And if you look on a map, this is what that lot looks like. Let me blow this up for you a little bit. This is what Washington Street looks like. That's the part the city now wants to take over. And if I put Google Maps on top of this, it's not the right shape, but it's the same area. Guess what happens to be in that lot? You guessed it, Christ Episcopal Church and the Affordable Housing Alliance. Think about what is going on here. The city is now threatening to take over this land that houses the church and the nonprofit building where they would be building this shelter. The city wants to just take it over. And they're not saying it's because of the shelter. They're just, they just want to take over some stuff through eminent domain. And what do they want to do with this land after they take it over? Well, they say we have big plans for this land. This isn't about stopping the homeless shelter. We actually want to build something on it. And they actually shared a picture of what they want to build. Like, check this out. You could see a big soccer field right where the church is. If I remove my face from this, can I do that? There we go. There are the pickleball courts in blue. Gotta have the pickleball courts. And you also see a parking lot. By the way, on the far left over there, on the far left, you see a skate park. Because if you don't like homeless people in your neighborhood and in your community, you know what you're going to love? A bunch of teenage skaters. If I've learned anything from movies from the 1980s, it's that old people love young skaters. There's also in the upper left, maybe that's the skate park. Either way, there is a skate park in here. But this is what they say they want to build. And the reason they want to build it, they say, is because there are no parks in the community. We need a good downtown park. And it just so happens that's the best space to put it because gotta have our pickleball courts. This is the argument that the church, that the city is making. This is from a local news outlet. The church property would allow a park to be developed closer to the downtown section as well as the surrounding residential neighborhood, which does not have an easily accessible park of its own. The property, measuring dozens of acres, could also be used for the construction of pickleball courts, tennis courts, a skate park, and a playground. There's no playground for the kids anywhere downtown for the most part. But specifically, this would serve about 20,000 families who live between this place and that diamond that runs up to Route 37, says the mayor of the town. There's nothing there servicing those kids. And this park, this would provide 20 to 30,000 people with a place to play. It would be bigger than the other park that they don't use anymore. So again, think about how devious this is. After the church says we want to build a homeless shelter, and a bunch of local community members are like, don't build a homeless shelter here. It's going to draw in people we don't like. The city's like, oh, by the way, we want to build a giant park for 20,000 people and a bunch of teen skateboarders because the community members are going to love that. You don't like one homeless person sleeping on the bench, but rowdy teenagers you'd be totally cool with? Okay. But this is the city's argument. In theory, let's say the city uses eminent domain and tries to take over this land. There is a legal way for them to do that. You have to explain why you want to take it over, and a court needs to agree that's a legitimate reason. You also need to pay for all the stuff that is currently on that land, and the church is worth an estimated $2.5 million. Now, where this could go south is this really the only spot in downtown Toms River where you could build a park? Is this really necessary? Is there nowhere else in the city where you could do anything like this? I don't know. Now, it would be easier for them to take over this land if the church was not in use, but it totally is. As I said, they have 150 people every week. They also, according to Episcopal Church Service, it is a hub for community outreach. They host more than 20 support groups. They run a food pantry, and they do a weekly clothing distribution effort. So this church would be basically shut down if the city wanted to take it over. And if it shut down, it can't do the homeless shelter, right? It seems pretty obvious that they're only doing this. They're only saying we're going to take this over and build a park to block the church from building the homeless shelter. I am the one connecting those dots. The city is very much not connecting those dots because they're like, no, this has nothing to do with that. But, if you did not want the zoning committee to have to reject the approval for a shelter, it's a whole lot easier to say we're just taking over the land so you don't need a zoning permit because it's a moot point because the city owns the land now. So when the Toms River Township Council held its monthly meeting a week ago, this ordinance was on the agenda, and the church only found out it was on the agenda the day before the meeting, like that night. So they put out a Facebook post, and check this out, because they're freaking out about this. But this is the Facebook post they posted last week, April 30th. Prepare to act. Do not despair or fear. They explained what's going on, but look at this near the bottom. Because this was just learned of late yesterday when the agenda was published, details to deal with it are just being worked out. We will have them to you later today. Plan to attend if you can. The council meeting is at this time, at this place. More details will be provided. One recommendation in opposing this action: do not make a case for the shelter. This is interesting to me. The church is telling its supporters, don't talk about why we need the shelter. Talk instead about why this is an improper use of eminent domain. Talk about why the city has no right to take over this land. Focus on that. Don't focus on the shelter. And we will deal with that separately. All right. And then some Jesus bullshit after that. But this is the church saying, holy crap, they're going to take us over. We need to do something about it. So they go to this meeting, right? And in theory, one of the other things they pointed out, I didn't show you this, but one of the things they pointed out is they said, we don't even own the building. The Episcopal Diocese in New Jersey owns this building, which means we have big guns who can actually fight this in court for us. So don't worry about that. We have lawyers who can help us out. And they could also make the argument, they said, that there are no other Episcopal churches nearby, so this decision by the city would deprive them of their ability to worship freely, and conservative judges would love that argument. Am I right? So they're saying, focus on the eminent domain thing and the religious freedom thing. Don't talk about the shelter. So word spread fast. That meeting happened a week ago, and it turns out there were a lot of supporters of this church at that meeting. But here's what's amazing. When they got to this item on the agenda, members of the city council, there are like 8 people on the city council, 8 or 9. A few of them began arguing on behalf of the church, and they started arguing about it in a way you will not believe. So, for example, one of the things that came up is when they brought up this ordinance, let's pass this thing to take over this land, there was a motion on the table. Let's table this motion. Let us not discuss it. Let's push it off to another time. And that got everyone into a big argument. Okay, I'm going to tell you what happens, then I'll play the video for you. One of the council members, his name is Thomas Niveson, he started yelling at one of his colleagues, for the first time this year, Craig, do the right thing and oppose this move to take over the land. After that, he yelled at another member of this council. Her name is Lynn O'Toole. And he said, you hate God. You hate Christ. Obviously, you hate humanity like our mayor. You hate homeless people. Come on, Lynn. And then the same dude went after another ordinance supporter, William Byrne. And he said, hey, Bill, what are you getting out of this, Bill? There was another member of the council who opposes this plan, who then led the whole council in the Lord's Prayer, which honestly, that's not helping. Don't do that. That's stupid. And then a third member of the council warned his colleagues, there is no way on God's green earth that anybody should vote for this ordinance. This is setting up our town for yet another lawsuit, one I don't think the mayor understands the scale of. This is bad in every direction. So there are some people fighting on behalf of the church. I'm going to play this clip for you. It is chaos And because they're yelling so damn much, it is hard to understand them. That's why I tried to tell you what they're saying. But check this out. It is unbelievable.
I implore all the council people up here
No discussion.
to table
No
this.
discussion.
We're going to discuss it.
No.
No discussion?
It's
I
a
think
fir-
the town wants
it's a
some
first
discussion.
time. It's a first reading.
I know. I don't care if it's a first
Well,
reading.
we have rules. You need to obey
Yeah,
the
your rules.
No, the council.
No, your rules.
No, the
Justin.
council rules. We have council rules.
Okay.
Mr. Pasquarello? Mr.
We need to take Washington Street
you-
off of this. We need to take Washington Street off.
Council President Lamb.
No.
Come on, Craig. Do the right thing, Craig.
Hey, you're getting order.
Glenn, do the
Council
right
President
thing.
You're out of
For
order.
the first time this year. Do the right thing.
You're out of order.
Come on, Craig.
You're out of order.
Yeah, I know I'm out of order.
Well, you should get back in order. Get back in order. It'll be removed.
Come on, Craig.
We can't hear. We can't.
For once, Craig. Vote the right way, Craig. For once.
We've got to be able to,
Do the right thing, Craig.
Councilman Iverson, we have to be able to conduct the meeting. We have to be able to conduct the meeting, please.
Okay.
Why, Lynn?
Hold on. There's
You
a
hate
motion on the
Chris?
floor.
You hate God? You hate
That's not-
Christ?
That's not the way we conduct business. Please.
Obviously, you hate humanity like our mayor. You hate homeless people. Come on, Lynn. For once. Once. Not once since you've been up here. Have you done the right thing?
doing the right thing, so
Oh,
why don't you
wait, you-
pipe down?
Oh, come on, Lynn.
Order. Point of order.
How can you
You're
even
out of
look at-
order.
well-
You're out of order.
I know
You're out
I'm
of order. David, you're out of order. David, you're out of order. David, you're out of order.
Give us steady for scaling bread, and forgive us for trespassing against us. Lead us not into temptation. Amen.
This is a first reading.
Motion.
Councilman Iverson.
I vote no, and we're supposed to be here for the people, correct?
Councilman Quinlish.
There's no discussion. Mr.
Hey, Lynn,
Hexler.
for the people, right? Hey, Craig, for the people.
You're out of control.
Hey, Bill, what are you getting out of this, Bill?
You're out of control. Next
What
vote,
are we
please.
doing for you,
We have a
Bill?
motion, Councilman Quinlish.
He should be removed.
Councilman Quinlish.
There's no way on God's green earth
Your vote, Councilman, please.
that anybody should vote for this ordinance. This is setting up the town for yet another RLUIPA lawsuit, one that I don't think he understands the scale of. This is bad in every direction. My vote is unequivocally no.
Unbelievable. That is the wildest meeting ever. In case you're not familiar, he brought up RLUIPA. You've heard of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is supposed to defend religious freedom, signed into law by Bill Clinton, but it's been weaponized by the religious right to basically say if there's a religious belief I hold, that should override whatever the law is. And religious right has weaponized that law. RLUIPA, which stands for a big long thing, it's a federal law that's an extension of RFRA that basically protects houses of worship from zoning discrimination. It's like religious freedom, but for churches. So that's what he's saying. We're going to be hit with one of those lawsuits if we move forward with this. This is bad in every direction. So there's 7 members on that board. You heard, I don't love their arguments. I don't think it's fair to accuse the other person of hating God. I don't think that lady hates God. I think she hates homeless people. I don't think it helps when one of the other supporters is like saying the Lord's Prayer. We don't need that. We don't need more Jesus at this meeting. But I think they are right ethically. So ultimately, again, they tried to make a motion to just not discuss this issue. That failed 4-3. So they were going to discuss the issue. And then they had to vote on whether they should move forward with this ordinance. And that passed 4-3. So they're going to discuss this again on May 28th. That's the date of their next meeting. At that point, public comment will be allowed, which means there's probably way more drama to come. So I've written a lot of stories about church-state separation. I've made a lot of videos about these types of issues. And sometimes when I see these battles taking place, it's like churches demanding public money for like private renovations and things like that. This is not one of those stories. Like the county is not providing this kind of shelter, and church officials are offering to do it and going through all the proper channels to get legal approval to do it. And the controversy has nothing to do with religion, but everything to do with what obligations a community has to people in their town with nowhere to live. And some residents would rather close their eyes and just not deal with it and hope the people in need just give up and go somewhere else. They don't want to help them in any meaningful way. So kudos to the church for actually wanting to help those people. Again, I don't think anyone on this council is making this vote out of religious animosity. I don't think they hate the church. I don't think they have any personal beef with the people of this church. I think they just don't want to see homeless people in their community, and they think this park would drive out homeless people and move them to some other community that may not have their resources. And if a church is going to help the people they don't like, these council members, the majority, are going to do whatever it takes to stop the church, even if it means taking the land they are sitting on. So I think that is deeply unethical. I think it may be illegal, but this is the controversy that is brewing as we speak. We'll find out at the end of the month what they're going to do moving forward, but I wanted to show you that clip.